Why don't women resist after being inserted? Hi everyone, I'm Ada. Today we are going to talk about a very heavy and serious topic. Why do some women seem to not resist when they are sexually assaulted, especially when the sexual assault has reached a certain stage? The truth behind this is actually unknown to many people, but it is very necessary for us to clearly understand it so as to give victims due understanding and support, rather than misunderstanding and blaming them. In society, there is a very common but very wrong idea that when people hear that a woman has been sexually assaulted, some people will subconsciously ask, why doesn't she resist? It seems that as long as a woman does not resist fiercely, it means that she is voluntary, or at least has a certain responsibility. But is this really the case? Absolutely not. Let's talk about a real example. There is a woman named Zhang who is a colleague of a man named Liu. Because of frequent communication and cooperation in daily work, the relationship between the two gradually became familiar. One night, Liu came to Zhang's dormitory and said that he was in a bad mood and wanted to talk to her. Out of friendship between colleagues, Zhang opened the door without thinking much. But who would have thought that after Liu entered, he actually forced Zhang to have sex? Afterwards, Zhang bravely said that he would sue Liu. Liu immediately became anxious after hearing this. Not only did he not realize his mistake, but he tried to excuse himself. He said that throughout the process, both of them were voluntary, and emphasized that Zhang did not resist at the time, and even threatened Zhang that if she reported it, it would not be good for her. After hearing these words, Zhang began to waver in her heart. Moreover, she saw various discussions on the topic of sexual assault on the internet, and some people mentioned the famous saying, "Why don't women resist after entering?" This made her fall into deep self. She couldn't help but wonder if she didn't resist. Does it really mean that it was voluntary? In fact, we need to understand that in the normal cognition of most people, when a person faces danger, such as a terrible thing like sexual assault, everyone will think that this person will either fight with all his strength or run away quickly. Indeed, in general dangerous situations, if a person feels that he is capable of fighting the danger and has a chance of winning, he may choose to resist. And if he feels that resistance may cause him greater harm and a greater chance of escaping successfully, he may choose to escape. But there is a critical premise here, that is, to ensure the safety of one's own life. However, when a woman is sexually assaulted, especially in the situation of extreme fear and danger, when she realizes that neither running away or resisting can guarantee her life safety, her body will activate a special protection mechanism, which is the third mechanism, rigidity. Many people may not know that this seemingly non-resistance, rigid state is actually the body trying to protect itself. A 2005 study pointed out that in the experience of sexual assault, up to 88 of victims will experience temporary paralysis. This is a very common phenomenon, and it can even be said that this is a fairly healthy reaction of the body in extremely dangerous situations. When the body enters this rigid state, the victim will feel powerless in both hands, as if disabled, unable to speak, and unable to cry. This is because the body believes that if it resists at this time, it may suffer greater harm. You should know that the human body is controlled and directed by the brain. When the body is controlled by the attacker and the victim is extremely afraid of being seriously injured or even dying, the extreme survival reflex of the brain will take over the body and put the body into this self-protective, rigid state. However, this normal, rigid reaction is often voluntary. Many victims themselves are unaware of this automatic mechanism of the brain, and they may be questioned by their relatives, such as, "Why didn't you resist?" This makes them often feel ashamed and embarrassed afterwards. They will feel that because they did not make obvious resistance during the violation, they are like imperfect victims, and thus fall into deep self-doubt and even think whether they really deserve such misfortune. But I want to solemnly tell you here, and all the victims who may be suffering from this self-doubt, those guilt, shame, and sense of failure should all belong to the rapist, and it is definitely not your fault. The inability to resist is not because you are reluctant to resist, but because the normal physiological reaction of the body is protecting. Moreover, sexual assaults are mostly accompanied by violence and serious threats to life safety. Sexual assaults may use all means to limit the victim's resistance. Therefore, as a member of society, we must abandon the wrong ideas and accusations against victims of sexual assault. When we hear about such things happening around us, we should give victims understanding, support, and care instead of questioning why they did not resist. We must let the victims know that they're not wrong and the criminals who commit sexual assaults are wrong. Only in this way can we create a more just, warm, and safe social environment so that everyone, especially women, can get the protection and support they deserve when facing danger, instead of suffering additional mental pressure and harm after suffering misfortune. I hope that today's sharing can give everyone a deeper and more correct understanding of this issue. Let us work together to contribute our own strength to eliminate this kind of injustice and harm in society. Today's video ends here. Welcome everyone to leave a message for discussion. We will talk again in the next issue. Bye.